just recently, the International Civil Aviation Organization, he was there, and it was from that event that he was declared an expert. I'm talking about Mr. Godwin Wabwanyi Ike. He is a state surveyor and aviation freak. And today we are going to be doing the part 2 of the crash of Lion Air. A very good morning to you.
Hi.
And welcome to
Good morning, Joe.
This Morning ITV.
Long time, Joe. Where have you been?
Yeah, I've been around.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I missed you.
I've been around.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Of course, we're looking at the crash of Lion Air, and you know, for those people that missed the part 1, and of course catch up with what will be happening in part 2, we can just give them a brief of what happened and how that aircraft crashed.
Well, very sad thing that happened in Indonesia on the 29th of October, just as the month of my birth month was ending. An airplane, took out from Jakarta and was, heading to northeast of Indonesia. 30 minutes into the flight, the airplane was lost in Java Sea, and the rest is history that we are tracing, trying to find out exactly what went wrong and why that brand new airplane lost altitude and crashed, slaughtering 189 passengers and crew on board. Everyone was torn into shreds because he slammed nose down right into the Java Sea and broke up into pieces. Also,
To shreds.
Shreds. Even the human content were all torn into shreds because initially human parts were being picked up, and before the fuselage was eventually found.
But what is the remote cause of that?
Well, investigations are still going on. One of the black boxes has been found, but the real one that they need, which is the voice recorder, is still at large. They are still looking for that one to find out what communications took place. What was known was the fact that the previous day, during a flight from the northeastern town in Indonesia back to Jakarta, passengers that were on that flight said that they had what they described as a roller coaster, movement. The plane would ascend, come down, ascend. So it had, it was said to have had some engine issues, and but anyway, they landed in Jakarta safely. But engineers were invited. They went in, claimed to have fixed what the problem was, and then declared the plane airworthy and fit to fly back. And so passengers boarded, but 13 minutes into that flight, the pilot realized, or rather the pilots realized that something was wrong, and they didn't need to continue that flight. And so they announced to control tower that they took permission, that they wanted to come back. The permission was granted. Well, in the process of navigating, to get around, they lost altitude. First 5,000, in a single swoop, and the second another 3,000 in a single swoop, and then at the level of about 2,500 feet, of course, it had disappeared from the radar, and then it turned out that it actually went nose down and hit the waters and tore into shreds. You know the nature of water. As soft and easy as water looks, if you drop an object on top of water, there's something that is known as upthrust. It resists you with the same amount of force with which you hit it. And then after resisting you, it then gives way for you to sink. That's the nature of water. So upthrust will always you know, play its part. And so when the plane, you know, at very high speed and nose down, hit the water, it hit it with a lot of momentum, and of course, received equal, you know, portion of resistance from water, which tore it into shreds and tore even all the contents into shreds. And then, of course, whatever was left of the fuselage, you know, sank. So,
okay,
so
it's funny
so
to,
today,
of course, know that water has that kind of capacity.
oh well, if you did science in secondary school, you would have heard about upthrust.
Metal project.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's go straight to our talking point. Starting with the first.
Clip one, please. We are in part two. We had this going. Here we go. Search and rescue operations. Excuse me. Shortly after the crash of Lion Air Flight 610, the crew of a tugboat who witnessed the crash immediately reported to authorities in Tanjung Priok, a district of North Jakarta, Indonesia, that a plane had crashed at 6:45 a.m. and debris had been located in the water at 7:45 a.m. local time. The Indonesian National Search and Rescue Agency, known as Basarnas, assisted by the Indonesian Air Force and the Indonesian Navy, immediately launched a search and rescue operation. In further response to the crash, the Ministry of Transportation set up crisis centers in Jakarta and Pangkal Pinang. Relatives of the victims were offered free flights to Jakarta by Lion Air. Free accommodation was also provided for them. Let's run quickly to clip two. We have
That's relative of those on board.
Yes. Relatives of those on board.
Yeah, but what is the need for, you know, getting the relative?
Yeah, because they were going to...
Is it for identification?
Yeah, for identification, yes. They needed to come to identify, you know, some bodies that were intact, and for those that were not intact, that were torn into shreds, they needed to get DNA samples from relatives, so they can match the DNA with the DNA of those. So with such matching, you'll be able to tell who.
But again, the emergency response there is very, very commendable, where you have a team set up immediately by Air Force and Navy to rescue.
Well, quite impressive. That's why I made sure I brought out that point, because you remember the essence of this program is to also help build the aviation sector in Nigeria, and then if those that are concerned find time to watch or even go to YouTube to watch those they missed, they have a lot to learn from this program. This is well researched, and it's a whole lot of hard work that is being put in to bring this information to excuse me, to Nigeria, and therefore it should be taken seriously. And so there's a lesson to learn.
Clip two.
So clip two. Recovery operations. Excuse me, I'm having a little bit of clogging up of my throat this morning. The Indonesian National Search and Rescue Agency announced that its operations will last for a minimum of 7 days and a maximum of 10 days. With a command center set up in Tanjung Priok, divers began to recover human remains and fragments of the aircraft's fuselage and assorted debris. On that first day, officials stated that bad visibility and strong sea current hampered the search and rescue effort. Initially, signals from the aircraft's emergency locator transmitter, known as ELT, could not be detected, although deemed by the airline authorities to be serviceable. 2 days after the crash, acoustic pings from, were detected about 3 kilometers. That is about 1.9 miles from the group of 8 search points established by the search agency. They had, established about 8 search points and located ships and helicopters on the rest of them. Really wanting to know where the airplane ended up, because debris were floating and going along with the flow of water current, but the real location of the airplane needed to be found, as quickly as possible. All right, yeah. So on November 1, Barely 4 days after the crash, one of the black boxes, the flight data record of FDR, was found at a depth of 32 meters, about 105 feet. The cockpit voice recorder, CVR, was yet to be found. Clip 3, very quickly. Yeah, here we go, Joe. Preliminary findings from investigation. Take a look at that photograph you're looking at. Is a beautiful airport known as it's a view, from the air of the airport where that plane was flying to, and that airport is known as Ngurah Rai International Airport. Okay, it is the second largest airport in Indonesia, really? Next to the one that they were flying out from in Jakarta. Oh. All right. So that was it's located northeast of Indonesia. Okay.
But how close was the flight to this airport before that's
No, it was only 30 minutes. It was a 1 hour flight actually, more or less like traveling from here to Lagos. A little further, just a little further than traveling from here to Lagos, and it was exactly 1 hour flight. Well, they had put in only 13 minutes, and so they were over the Java Sea. Yeah, they were over the Java Sea when when that incident took place. So they hadn't even gone far away from Jakarta. So let's move on with clip 3. Preliminary findings from investigation. The night before the crash, Joe, listen to this. It's very interesting.
That's clip 4. Clip 3.
No, we're looking for at clip 3, please. Get us clip 3.
Clip 3.
Yeah, here we go. The night before the crash, the aircraft was said to have been used on a flight from Ngurah Rai International Airport, Bali, Indonesia, to Soekarno-Hatta International Airport, Jakarta, Indonesia. Now, Soekarno-Hatta International Airport in Jakarta is the largest airport in Indonesia, followed by the Ngurah Rai International Airport, where that plane was headed to, in the northeast of the country. Okay. Now, investigation shows that the night before the crash, the aircraft was said to have been used on a flight from Ngurah Rai International Airport, Bali, Indonesia, to Soekarno-Hatta International Airport, Jakarta, Indonesia. Passengers on the flight mentioned above recounted that they were initially prevented from boarding the aircraft as it was said to be suffering from engine problem, and that engineers were trying to fix it. That was the previous day. As the plane was en route to Jakarta, it was said to be having trouble maintaining constant altitude. The flight was described as a roller coaster ride. Maybe if you come back to us very quickly, let me show our viewers what is meant by a roller coaster ride. Here, Joe, you are supposed to actually, after getting up to your altitude, you are supposed to stay and keep passengers comfortable.
Maintain the cruising level.
Yeah, maintain the cruising level. But what the passengers describe was something like this.
That's the way the aircraft is built.
No. Because there was a problem. There was a technical problem that the engineers hadn't really sorted out thoroughly. So that's what they describe as a roller coaster that they had.
Roller coaster ride.
That's correct. And so let's move very quickly to clip 4. Yeah, preliminary findings from investigation continues, okay? Edward Sirat, the Chief Executive Officer of Lion Air, that's the name of the man at the helm of affairs in Lion Air, admitted that the aircraft had technical problems the previous day. That was Sunday, 28. Remember, it crashed on the 29th, but which was a Monday. But on Sunday, the 28th October 2018, but maintained that this had been addressed in accordance with maintenance manuals issued by the manufacturer, leading engineers to declaring that the aircraft was ready for takeoff on the morning of the accident. Below is the new terminal of Ngurah International Airport with Balinese traditional architecture mix. That picture you're looking at is the building of the terminal of the airport where they were heading. You know, you see the architecture described as the Balinese.
So sad they never got there.
They never got there, but beautiful airport, isn't it? Just by the seaside. Look ahead of that building. You see that even the runway, you know, is built right on the sea.
And viewers, don't worry. By next episode, we'll get you a wider picture.
No, I have a good one. As soon as we exhaust our clips, 2 more clips, and we exhaust, they will see the real photo of the airport.
Okay.
Okay, take us to clip 5 very quickly. Let's save some time. Clip 5. Preliminary findings also continue. The Indonesia Meteorological Climatology and Geophysical Agency, known as BMKG, that is a ministry, there in Indonesia, reported that the weather was clear around the time of the crash. Wind speed from the northwest was estimated at 5 knots, equivalent of 9.3 kilometers an hour or 5.8 miles per hour. Visibility was said to be good and with no cumulonimbus clouds. That is a sample of what is known as cumulonimbus clouds, and I can explain that very quickly to you. It's formed, by upward rising wind driving water vapor along with it. So it's all water vapor. But because
that's up there.
Yes, because the upward wind pushes the water vapor all the way. It creates this cloud that is known as cumulonimbus, and if you
could it also be described as a mixture of water and wind?
You can't call it mixture, but the point is that it's vapor hanging up there in the skies. But because a vertical upward pushing wind drives it, it comes like a pyramid, and of course it can actually occupy, laterally speaking, upwards of 10 to 15 kilometers. If an airplane gets into it, you are totally blind.
So it is hazardous.
Yes, it is hazardous. You're totally blind, and it can cause a lot of
like the shear wind.
It doesn't behave not exactly like the shear wind, but it will give you some bumpy ride, and of course
because we all know that the shear wind is the nightmare of all pilots.
Oh yes, of course. Wind shear is a pilot's nightmare, because it's a thief, it's a rogue. It comes at you without notice. Even though technology has developed a way of, I understand. Yes, I understand. We've installed one in Abuja, Lagos, and Port Harcourt, I guess. Oh no, Kano. Last Thursday before last. When we had, that was on the 8th, when we had the aviation, 5th Aviation Stakeholders Forum at the NAF Center. The Honorable Minister Hadi Sirika reared out, all the installations they've done recently, and that's when I found out that, the wind shear early warning detector has been installed. But then,
we'll come back to that. Lanty talked about the ILS. We'll look at it.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
So in the aviation sector.
Yeah, clip 6 quickly. Time is usually not our friend here. Let's quickly deal with clip 6, and so we can have some more conversation before we run away from this studio. We're still continuing with the preliminary findings, Joe. The altitude and airspeed of flight 610 was adjudged by aviation experts to be abnormal. That was on the day of the crash. And see why now. About 3 minutes into the flight, the captain asked for permission to return to the airport as there were flight control problems. 8 minutes into the flight, data transmitted automatically by the aircraft showed that it had descended to about 5,000 feet, which was about 1,500 meters. In the midst of constant fluctuating altitude, the airspeed transmitted by the aircraft was around 300 knots, equivalent to 560 kilometers an hour or 350 miles per hour. Speed considered to be by aviation experts to be unusual, as aircraft at altitudes lower than 10,000 feet, which is about 3,000 meters, are restricted to an airspeed of 250 knots. Now, anytime you're flying below 10,000 feet, the rule is that even though you can make all your speed, but pilots are taught to limit their speed at maximum of 250 knots, which is equivalent of 460 kilometers an hour or 290 miles per hour. You know the reason, Joe? At that level, you still have very high atmospheric pressure, and you still have a lot of dense wind. And so if you blast away at 500 knots and beyond, the likelihood is that the membranes of the airplane will be torn apart because of pressure. And so it's only when you rise above 10,000 feet when the atmospheric pressure has thinned out. Remember I taught you about this, the higher you go, the less the atmospheric pressure is, which is the reason we pressurize the cabin.
Because at that point you cannot get...
you can't breathe anymore. You don't have that atmospheric pressure that enables us to breathe the way we do on the ground. So the cabin needs to be pressurized so that you appear as the way it is on ground and help us to take our breath. Okay. So let's get on with that clip 6.
Okay, we'll just
10 minutes,
that last clip. And
10 minutes into the flight, the aircraft was recorded to have further dropped by more than 3,000 feet, which is the equivalent of 910 meters. Okay? The last recorded altitude of the aircraft was 2,500 feet, which is equivalent of 760 meters. And so the airplane disappeared, and the rest is history. Yeah, show us one of those. Those photographs quickly.
Okay.
That is aerial photo of the airport in Bali, and then show us the building so that you see the Balinese beautiful architecture. Show us the next photograph very quickly.
Okay, while he will, of course, give us the next picture, who do we blame on this? Passengers that used that aircraft the day before had complained that they didn't like the way it sounds while in the skies, and engineers tried their best to fix it and gave an approval that it is safe for, of course, pilots to use.
Something
but at the end of the day,
at
the end of the day, the aircraft was used and never got to its destination.
Yeah.
Who do we blame?
Well, let me tell you this. Some more information emerged shortly after that crash. The manufacturers of the airplane, remember it's one of those brand new, new model Boeing 737 known as Max 8. They have them in different models, Max 8, Max 9, Max 10, depending on the size. For the regional, international, and local, models. Beautiful planes made by, Boeing in the USA. But unfortunately, they built a safety system, supposedly safety system, known as anti-stall system, which was configured to take over control of the airplane anytime. You remember I taught you about high angle of attack that can cause you to stall. Normally, once you get to your altitude, you're supposed to keep the nose of your airplane, as low as possible in order to gain
speed,
airspeed. Now, if anything makes you go this way, it's known as a very high angle of attack. Okay, this plane will lose airspeed. And once your airspeed falls below the minimum speed that keeps this plane in the sky, it stalls.
It's calm down.
And then once it stalls, your engine will be blasting away, but the plane stops flying. You know what it does? It comes down vertically. The only chance you have to escape this stall is if you have height advantage, and then you find that you are stalling, you push on your stick, take a dive, gain some speed, level off, and then begin once again to fly and fly away from the stall. That's the only chance you have. But if it's a low-level stall, you are doomed.
Because there's no height advantage.
No height advantage, you must crash. Now, Boeing, now in MAX 8, built a system which they didn't inform the airliners that bought the plane from them, and the pilots were not trained on how to engage and disengage those safety system. The safety system is an anti-stall one. What happens is that if the airplane, that's the Bali on screen now, in Balinese architecture, they describe that as a Balinese architecture for that airport in Bali where they were heading to. Lovely, isn't it?
Very beautiful.
Beautiful architecture, traditional Balinese architecture. I wish they could just do one of those for us here in Nigeria. Right, now, come back to us, yes. Now, what that anti-stall does for the MAX 8 is that if for any reason this plane finds itself going up this way and it exceeds the angle of attack, it kicks in and forces the nose of the airplane
stabilize.
in order to begin to gain airspeed again. That's what that auto system. But then if a manual has been supplied to the airliners and pilots have been trained, they should have known when to disengage it.
So the long and short of this is that even the producers of the airline have questions to ask.
Yeah, one of the families of the passengers lost has already sued Boeing and holding them responsible for the death of those 189 people.
But does he have the local standard to sue Boeing?
Yeah, why not? Why not? Because Boeing supplied the manual after the accident as further information.
Wow.
Yeah, after the accident. So the airliners were saying that if they had that information that new technology was installed in that airplane, they would have trained their pilots on how to use it. So remember the plane, because of what was said to be apparent engine problem, was doing a roller coaster. Watch. We're doing a roller coaster. So in the process of that roller coaster, it probably exceeded the angle of attack that the sensor noticed, and then of course that system engaged and pushed down the nose of the airplane. The pilots didn't know how to disengage it, and so it went down.
Okay, that's how that happened. I'm sure as we go further in the next episode of the program, and of course,
yeah, we have part 3. This
particular segment of the program, every Monday morning you get more details on how that plane crashed. Yeah. The much we have on this segment, it has been with Mr. Godwin. The N, I like to pronounce it.
Inabwenyi.
Ike. Of course, an aviation freak, #1 philanthropist as far as I am concerned. You may not know, but I know. Until we come your way again, bye for now.